Hey guys, welcome back to Breaking the Barrier. I'm your host, Rebel Ciclocha, and today I am so excited to be joined by a professional bullfighter, cowboy lifesaver, and entrepreneur, Chuck Swisher. Chuck, thanks for being here. How are you this morning?
Good, very good. Excited to be on, for sure.
Awesome. Well, growing up, I don't really remember my teachers presenting bullfighter as an option at career day. So if you could give us some background on where you got started and how you kind of chose this as your profession.
Yeah, so growing up, I actually wanted to be Tony Hawk. I rode a skateboard around town. I was the biker kid. I remember we kind of had our own little clique of skateboarders. We were literally going to be the next Tony Hawk, the next big thing at the X Games, and I was probably 14 years old or so, maybe 13 or 14, and I think I stumbled across a picture of my dad riding bulls way back before I literally traded in my van shoes for cowboy boots and my flat belt cap for a cowboy hat. And I was like, all right, I'm going to be a bull rider like my dad. And at 15, like I literally changed my life from a skater to a cowboy. And I was dead set on riding bulls. And I think maybe one of my birthdays or something, my mom and dad got me all the bull riding gear I needed. And whenever it came down to it, I was too scared to get on one. I was like, maybe being a bull rider isn't for me. And so, as a I think I was a freshman in high school. There was a senior, and I come from a very, very small town. There's a senior in the school as well, and he was the only other cowboy in the entire school. So I was like, dang, so I want to be a cowboy. That guy's a cowboy, but that guy, he fought bulls. So I was like, maybe that's what I should do. Instead of riding them, I should run from them. And yeah, at 15 years old, my parents took me to a bullfighting school, and it's been 18 years since. So here we are.
You know what I find so interesting is you were too scared to crawl on a bull, so you chose to just be in the entire bull riding as opposed to, 5 to 10 seconds at a time. So I kudos to you.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody says I'm the crazy one, but for me, I know how to get away.
Yep.
The bull riders, they know how to hang on half the time, and once they hit the ground, they don't know where they're at, if they're coming or going. So for us, I guess it's a funny way to look at it, but yeah, here we are.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there's a lot of bullfighting that is sort of instinctual, but learning those building blocks and fundamentals, I'm sure, was very important and probably very helpful since you did so at a young age. Talk more about just learning the basics and what that process was like.
Yeah, so whenever I first went to that school, like I said, I probably wore out 100 VHS tapes of those the professional guys, and just watching video and stuff. And so I think the first day at the school, we kind of just went through the very basics. It was a lot of uh, getting chased around with a wheelbarrow, just kind of learning how to make a round, what to do, what not to do. And at this time too, like I started working a bunch of cattle and stuff around the house and with a lot of friends. So I kind of knew a little bit about cattle. So I kind of knew kind of how they moved and everything. And yeah, at the school, we literally started with the wheelbarrow, and then we slowly advanced into maybe some smaller bulls. And then they started bucking bigger bulls. And yeah, just slowly but surely, we got from a willed bull to a real bull.
Do you remember the first bull riding that you fought at?
Um, Dang. I was actually trying to think of this the other day. I actually think it was in Enid, Oklahoma. My dad used to, whenever I first started fighting bulls, my dad wanted to have some bucking bulls himself. And so we would go to Enid, Oklahoma. Phil Sumner had a bull ride, and they called it the Sumner Winter Series. And this bull ride, and it seemed like it started at probably 7. They bucked horses and everything, and then they bucked bulls, and then they would let me come in at the practice at the very end. And sometimes the practice didn't start till 1 or 2 in the morning. So here I am, a 15-year-old kid, and I would be out in the truck just waiting on the actual bull riding to end so I could go in and fight the practice. And then I think sooner or later they let me start to fight the actual bull riding. And so yeah, it was probably for Phil Sumner way back in 2005 ish. And
Awesome.
then it was cool because Phil also, he had his own rodeo company, and so they hired me on for some Oklahoma junior rodeos. So I got to be a pretty much a junior in high school, going to these junior rodeos, and then I got to do some high school rodeos and college rodeos to open rodeos into the pros.
Awesome. So you've worked some of the biggest rodeos in the country. You've worked the national finals rodeo. Talk about the progression from working at the amateur level to making that jump into the professional scene.
For me, whenever I guess before I got my card, I knew that it was going to be kind of expensive, and I've talked to a few guys. And this is what I always tell the young guys too: is like, one, don't buy your PRCA card just to have your PRCA card. Buy your PRCA card if you know you're going to use it, because it's so expensive and it takes so much to get it. And so that's what I told myself. I was like, well, at 18 years old, I wasn't. I don't know if I wasn't not ready, but I didn't have any pro rodeos lined up. So I think I actually didn't get my card until I was 20 or 21, and yeah, and then that's kind of when I knew I had some options to go to some pro rodeos and actually use my card rather than just have it sit in my wallet and kind of show it off. So,
So, of all the rodeos you fought bulls at, is there one that stands out in particular or one that's been the most memorable?
uh, man, that's a tough question, because nowadays I've worked some of these rodeos for 10 years or better. And some of the rodeos, this was my first year to ever work, and each of them have their own thing. It depends on what you want. Like San Antonio, we just got done with San Antonio, and it's a freaking awesome rodeo. 21 performances in the heart of Texas. San Antonio is such a cool city. The committee there is so awesome. There's a small rodeo in Oregon that I work, Joseph, Oregon. It's the most beautiful town in the entire world I've ever been to. It's probably it's mine and my wife's favorite place to go for sure, just because it's a touristy town that not all the tourists have found yet. So it's still small and everything. This year I actually got to work the San Diego rodeo, which was it was insane for me. Growing up, baseball was kind of like my life, and I love baseball, and today still is. Baseball is my favorite sport, but to be able to get into San Diego and come walking out of the dugout in my bullfighting gear in front of 25, 30,000 people onto the Padres baseball field at the Petco Stadium and fight bulls, and like in one beautiful San Diego, but also like such a cool atmosphere. And yeah, so San Diego it's definitely up there for sure on
Wow.
the tops.
I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about San Diego. Was the how do I want to word this? Um, where did you see any differences in the crowd? How was rodeo received by a California crowd as opposed to, in Texas where at least to an extent people
Yeah,
are familiar?
yeah. So actually, it was funny going out there, or actually maybe months before it ever even happened. Like the city of San Diego tried to shut it, and maybe it wasn't. I don't know how to exactly word this without making it sound too bad, but people in San Diego actually tried to shut the rodeo down before it ever even happened. So going out there, it was like oh dang, like this is going to be crazy. There's going to be PETA people everywhere, and we're going to be the cowboys in the big city, and we're going to be hated, and it's going to be weird. It's going to kind of suck, I'd have to deal with all these people. But whenever we got out there, it was open arms. They said there's a chance of some protesters and stuff, which we've been to many other rodeos with protesters, and the thing is with protesters, everybody's got their own opinion. To me, my opinion is rodeos good, beef is good. But I mean, like I said, I'm not going to be mad at you if you have other opinions than me. People are people. But yeah, we got out there and didn't really know what to expect. The rodeo goes off, and obviously, like calf roping has always been the iffy event for a lot of fans and stuff. And like, there's 20,000 people the first night at San Diego Rodeo, first time it's ever happened there, and these people are going crazy over the calf roping, like they can't get enough of it. And I was like, this is calf roping.
That's
Calf roping, yeah, calf roping sucks, y'all. Like, wait till the bull ride, and uh,
No bias at all.
yeah, yeah. Sorry, Shane Hanchy, but no, I mean, these people like they love the calf roping. It was the craziest thing ever, you know. And then we're like, oh dang, like maybe this is uh this is a good rodeo crowd. One, because it's not your typical Texas country people, you know, who truly love rodeo. This is a crowd that hasn't ever seen rodeo before, so they don't know what to expect. And in return, like we're getting a whole new, I guess the new kids say, vibe from these people, you know. So it's like we're breaking barriers to people who may have never seen this or may have never get the chance to see this. And then one of the coolest things ever was after the rodeo, where me and the other bullfighters, the clown, the announcer, and a few other people were sitting at the hotel, and some people from Great Britain walked up, and they were just in town visiting. You know, San Diego's a huge city, and they're like, "Well, we're staying at the hotel. We walked outside and we heard this noise, and we're like, what's that noise?" And where our hotel was to the Petco Stadium was like 2 or 3 blocks. So they heard the rodeo going on, didn't know it was a rodeo, walked up, and they said as they're walking to the arena, some protesters were like, "Hey, don't go in there, you know, like go have a nice dinner with your family and don't support the rodeo." And they're like, "Rodeo?" Like we had no idea what was going on. So they ended up buying tickets, walking in.
Reverse psychology.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They walked in and they said it was like one of the coolest experiences that they've ever had. And they're telling us this after the rodeo at the hotel bar. And
Wow.
these people have never been to a rodeo, you know, so they had no idea what to expect. And they're like, "Yeah, this was the coolest experience we've ever seen." And we literally went to the rodeo because we heard the noise from the hotel. We didn't even know rodeo was in town.
Wow, that's incredible. And I do remember seeing, I think, circulating on Facebook about the San Diego rodeo and support or something of that nature.
Yeah.
Um, I think, obviously we've seen a lot of growth in professional rodeo over the past few years, and that story is just one testament to that. But I think you have a unique perspective because you're not necessarily approaching it from a contestant perspective. What kind of things have you noticed from your role in the last few years, in terms of growth in the sport?
Yeah, you know, so like you said, whenever we go to a rodeo, we're there for the entire rodeo. Uh, a lot of contestants, they show up and they're there for, some of them are there for 5, 10 minutes, or maybe the whole night of the rodeo. But most of the time, they're there for their event. They do their thing and they pack up and they leave. But for me, I can tell a lot of rodeos are doing their best, and it's kind of, I don't know, I could kind of be biased because like I said, I've been to a lot of these rodeos for 10 or so years. So these rodeos, like the committee people at the rodeos, aren't my bosses anymore. They're my good friends and family. Uh, so whenever we go to these rodeos, you can tell like some of them are like struggling because there's 5 or 10 old men that have done this rodeo for so long, and they're volunteers. They don't get paid a dollar, you know. So they break their backs all year working at their regular job, and then they come through and break their backs working for the rodeo for free. But and I guess saying that, they do it because they know how much it has grown over the last 100 years or 75 years or whatever it may be, you know. And so it, to me, it's cool to see those guys and like families like literally sacrifice to go in and put on like such a cool event, you know. And like even San Diego, or which was a huge rodeo compared to like Joseph, Oregon, which is one of the smaller rodeos. So it's so cool to see like the different dynamics of it, and not be able to just be there for a day and then leave. It's cool to go in and like kind of make family and friends and like see the community change because of the rodeo.
So you get to see all the behind the scenes workings, all of the volunteers putting in their time. You also get to kind of witness the contestants and their element, and then how that is then received by all of the fans who bought tickets to be there. From all of that experience and all those perspectives, what are some things that you hope for, or some changes that you would like to see moving forward?
Yeah, so probably like the changes I would like to see, and things I'd hope for is One, just like the impact on people. Like I'm a small town kid. I was born and raised in Dover, Oklahoma. It's a town of 300 people. We don't have a stoplight. We literally moved 8 miles south to Kingfisher, Oklahoma, my wife and I, and it's a town of 4,500 people. We got a Walmart, so we kind of got everything we need. Um, but I just think the impact on people is what I hope for. Once they leave the rodeo, I hope that they see the hard work and dedication it takes to, one, put on a rodeo, two, to be a rodeo contestant, or be a contract personnel, or whatever it may be. Just because it's, like I said, one, it's a very dangerous job. Two, there's a lot of sacrifice that goes into it. We're traveling up and down the road most of the year, with or without our families. Sometimes it's just as hard to travel with your family as it is without, just because there's so many logistics that go into it. But like I said, I just hope the people realize and get impacted by, just kind of like I guess, the smaller culture of rodeo and the sacrifice that we put into it. And uh, in return, it goes back to the rancher. A lot of people think that their beef comes from Walmart, but at the end of the day, Walmart's not, uh, I guess, a butcher or a feedlot or whatever it may be, a ranch in itself. It's a store. So Walmart's got to get its beef from somewhere, and then the people who slaughter the beef for Walmart have to get their beef from somewhere, which comes back to be the local rancher and the small town person. You don't see local ranchers living in the big cities.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're working rodeos, you're not the only bullfighter in the arena. Talk about the dynamics that need to exist between your teammates and some of the people that you enjoy working with.
Yeah, yeah. So in my role in the rodeo, usually there's two or three of us that are fighting bulls. Some, depending on the rodeo, they'll have three. Some of them have two. But it's kind of it's literally, you have to trust the other guy on the other side of the bull with your life, knowing that he's going to step up and do his job, which makes you step up and do your job even more. Uh, you got to trust them with your life. So whenever something does go down, they're willing to step in and help out. So yeah, there's a big dynamic there, and I've always been a fan of having three guys in the arena, just because if you only have two, uh, you can only be on either side of the bull. But if you have three, then you're actually a triangle around the bull, so you have that many more points covered, and it's so much easier. And especially if you're working with guys that are really really good at their craft, and I feel like right now there's so many good bullfighters going down the road these days that uh, it's fun to get to work with any of them.
Absolutely. So just like rodeo is growing, the sport of bullfighting is kind of growing independently through bullfighters only. For those who are unfamiliar, could you kind of explain what that is and how that kind of differs from what you do at a traditional rodeo?
Yeah, so freestyle bullfighting actually started, I didn't know when, way back in the day, and it was actually an event at the Wrangler Finals. So, or the Wrangler National Finals, and so freestyle bullfighting is where they turn out one Mexican fighting bull, and the bullfighter goes head to head with the fighting bull for 60 seconds, and then it's scored very similar to bull riding or bronc riding, whatever it may be, which I feel like it's quite a bit more dangerous than your regular bucking bull, because your bucking bull, some of them are definitely mean, but at the end of the day, like, their job's to buck and then they'll turn and run out the gate. The fighting bull, like, their job is to literally, whatever's in front of them is to hook them. Uh, so that's what they're bred to do. And so the bullfights, they kind of died off there for a while, and then I don't know, it might have been 6 or 7 years ago now. Yeah, maybe 8 years, or no, 9 years or so. I don't even know my times. I'd say probably 9 years ago. The BFO started coming around, which the BFO is bullfighters only, and there's 15 or 20 of us pioneers. So so called, that we all kind of got together and helped like create what is now the Bullfighters Only tour. And it started out with just maybe one. Well, actually, it all started out with all of us fighting bulls in a pasture in Bonita, Oklahoma, which was really awesome. You know, like there was no fans, no music, no announcer. It was literally 10 or 15 of us bullfighters, a few camera guys, and a bunch of fighting bulls. And it was really, really awesome. And then it kind of grew, and we got to go to Vegas for the first. I wouldn't say it was the finals. It was just kind of a standalone bullfight out in Vegas, and that was in 2015. Yeah, and then the beginning of 16 is when we kind of started the tour. You know, we got to go and do a few of the PBR deals, and then Bullfighters Only actually had a few of the standalone events and everything. And now it's a full blown tour. It's a full blown season. There's BFO actually just picked up a new sponsor that is doing 3 events that are like $250,000 added combined for the 3 events. You know, so like it's growing and growing for sure. And somebody asked me the other day, actually, the head guy of BFO, he's like, "Did you ever think freestyle bullfights would start paying this much?" You know, and I was like, "Man, it's crazy." And he's like, "What was the most you ever won?" And so I actually won the first event in Las Vegas, and I won $10,000, which was huge money back then for a bullfighter. But before that, probably the most I ever won was 2,500, 3,000, which was also big money kind of back then, you know. But now these guys are going for $100,000.
Wow.
And so yeah, it's changed and it's evolved and it's definitely growing for sure. And it's so cool to see the sport from where it was when I was 15 years old to where it is now when I'm 33.
Wow. So which is more fun, fighting at a rodeo or being in BFO?
Well, so I guess my role has changed a little bit because uh I to answer your question, fighting bulls at a rodeo, because it's a for sure paycheck.
There you
Uh,
go. Good answer.
I'm contracted in now at the BFOs. I guess you could say I retired from the freestyle bullfighting deal. I never really officially announced it or anything like that. But
A really sad Instagram post.
yeah. It just got to the point to where I had enough good rodeos that were gonna pay for sure. There's no need for me to do the extra traveling and pay the money to hopefully not get hooked and win money.
Yep.
So now, I guess with the BFO, I'm kind of one of the judges, and I'm still a pioneer. So it's actually really easy on the BFO side because I stand on the opposite side of the fence with a pen and a piece of
There you
paper.
go.
So
Awesome. Well, I want to kind of switch gears a little bit because in addition to fighting bulls and your involvement with BFO, you also have a few entrepreneurial pursuits through Swisher Beef Company and then also real estate. Could you just give us the rundown on what those entail?
yeah, so Swisher Beef Company, I started it in 2018. My family, we kind of used to always butcher steer for ourselves, like for the family. And I guess in 18, it was time to butcher another one, and this is when I was living by myself. And I was at church one day, and I got to talking to the guy that was actually opening the door with me at the front doors at church, and we got to talking about beef and everything. And he's like, "Yeah, we're thinking about getting a bottle calf, raising it up, uh, then putting it on feed, getting it fat enough, and then butchering it for the family." And I was like, "Well, I've got one in the pen now. Why don't I go get a steer and I'll put him in the pen with mine? That way we can have buddies, like, or the steers can have buddies, and then I'll feed him out. I'll do all the work for you. That way it's no headache." And he's like, "Yeah, that would actually be awesome." And so in 2018, I was like, "Well, maybe like this could be a cool little business." And plus, we had a cow calf operation at the time, and every time we'd go to the sell barn, you're like, "Can I even afford to sell these calves?" You know, because the market was always so crazy. There's years where farmers and ranchers could literally not afford to take their calves to the sell barn because they knew the sell barn was going to be so cheap that they'd be better off keeping them. And so I didn't want to have to play the market game. I was like, why don't we take it, like, I guess, advantage of this opportunity instead of hauling calves to the sale? Let's just feed our own calves out. and we'll butcher it and we'll sell the beef. And so we started that up, and the first year we started, the goal was to butcher about 10 head for the entire year. And so I made a Facebook post about it saying, hey, we're going to do this beef deal. If anybody's interested, let me know. And it was very rough and wasn't pretty, but uh, we had, I think within the first month, we ended up selling 12 head of steers. And I was like, holy crap, like this could actually be a business. And then we branded it Swisher Beef Company. And ever since then, it's just been a growing business, and it's been really awesome just because we've grown so much as people through it, and then our beef deal has grown so much just because just so many people love good quality beef. And then two, I feel like one of our good traits in our business is like we try to build relationships with customers. Like we're not just a salesman. We don't, like, at the end of the day, I don't care if you buy beef from us or not. I just want the people to be eating good quality beef, and that's what we produce. And so whenever we have customers, we invite them to the ranch if they want to come look at the steers, see where we live, see how we do it. You're more than welcome to come out. If you want to pick your own steer, if you want number 10, you can have number 10. And if you want a picture of number 10 for every month for the time he's on feed, we'll send you a picture of number 10. And even when we take him to the butcher, we'll continue to show you that the beef that you want is the beef that you're getting. And yeah, so we started that in 18, and we've got it. It's pretty automatic right now. I think there's plenty of room to grow, but where we're at with rodeo and everything else we have going on, I don't want to get stretched too thin. So the beef deal is we probably butcher around 60 head a year, and we do it quarterly. So whenever I'm gone on the road, the steers are at home eating. Whenever I'm home, it's time to start a new set and time to take the old set to the butcher and get the beef to the customers. And so, yeah, as of right now, it's pretty automatic and pretty simple and pretty easy. I think there's quite a bit of room to grow, but like I said, we're not trying to get too crazy with it right now just because we have so many irons in the fire. And then on the other side of it, my good buddy Jared Cole, he actually came to me, or at our church. He actually used to do Dave Ramsey's financial freedom course or whatever, which is Dave Ramsey is all cash, no debt, uh, be smart with your money. And I was like, dang, like it was so perfect because I was not very smart with my money, and I was in debt, and I was spending money like I was Tom Cruise. Uh, and so I'd get to some of these rodeos and my check would already be spent because I'd have so much credit card debt. And then Jared came along and he's like, hey, read this book. And it was Financial Freedom by Dave Ramsey. So I read Dave's book, and literally within the next year or two, we started paying off all of our debt. And then the year after that, my same buddy Jared came back to me and he's like, "Hey, read this book." And it was called Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, and it's all about investing your money, being in debt. And I was like, "Dang, Jared, you're as bad as me." Like I went from skater to cowboy. Now you're going from no debt to all debt. And it was such a godsend. It was such a perfect timing for the Dave Ramsey, to show up in my life, the Jared Cole to come in and help me and like get my finances in order, and then to bring in the Rich Dad Poor Dad to where it's investing and having smart debt. There's a difference in pickup debt and house debt, because pickup debt is a depreciating asset, house debt is a appreciating asset. So I read his book and I was like, dang, maybe we should buy some rent houses. So we started buying some rent houses, and it actually took off way faster than what we thought. Uh, and now we're pretty far in debt, but our debt is actually making us money each month instead of like vehicle debt or RV debt or something like that, which don't get me wrong, you got to have a vehicle unless you're going to ride a horse everywhere or bicycle, and sometimes it's just part of it. And sometimes you got to be in debt to do that.
Yep.
But for us, is like, we don't need, there for the longest time, I had the brand new Dodge pickup every year, and I was like, man, this is nice. Look how cool I am pulling up to this parking lot. You pull up to the parking lot, and no one even sees you getting out of your pickup. And so there for a year or two, I'm like, this is kind of stupid. I've got a $80,000 pickup, that I just hope people see me getting out of, because I want to look cool. And then I was like, you know what I should do? I should sell my pickup and buy a little beater car that gets me where I need to go, saves fuel money. We've got a decent little feed truck that does the job. And I was like, I don't care what people see me roll up in, as long as I'm rolling up, you know. So
Yeah.
we sold the $80,000 pickup, bought a $25,000 car, and took $50,000 and went and bought another rent house. So now the rent house makes us way more money than the $80,000 pickup, and it's going to make us money for the rest of our lives. And then we just continue to multiply and keep doing that, and sooner or later uh, we won't need the rodeo income or the beef income, because we got the rent house income. And that's another was another goal of mine whenever I started the beef company. The goal with the beef company money was to surpass rodeo income. The first year we did that. And now the goal with the rent house money is to surpass beef and rodeo. And then once that happens, rodeo is going to be the lesser of the three, and it'll be time for me to step away anyway. So,
Awesome. Well, I wish I could just isolate that single clip and just make my younger brother and every young male in that age demographic listen to it. But I think that's really insightful. I think the direct to consumer model, especially in the beef space, is becoming very lucrative. I live in the heart of Nebraska, and we're seeing a lot of people do that, especially
yeah,
post COVID. So I have a lot of respect for that. I know it's a ton of work, but a really cool avenue.
yeah.
In all of your rodeo experience and entrepreneurial experience, what is a piece of advice that you'd like to pass along to our listeners?
Uh, don't think that you're going to be able to rodeo for the rest of your life. When I was 15 years old, people asked me what I was going to do when I grew up, and whenever I got old, I said I'm going to fight bulls forever. I never thought about what I was going to do after I fought bulls, because I literally thought I was going to fight bulls till I was 80 years old, and they buried me. But now I try to I try to tell the 18, 20-year old kids, I was like, hey, go buy a house, go buy a rent house, start a business now. Just because whenever I was 18, if I would have started, I would be so far ahead of everybody else in the game. And I know you do need to focus a lot on fighting bulls and everything, but at the end of the day, literally, my next rodeo could be my last, just because it's such a dangerous job. And if you break your leg or you get hurt severely, you're not going to be able to continue to rodeo. And it's not just fighting bulls; it's roping or uh, riding bucking horses or whatever it may be. You need more than one stream of income, just because I think someone's pulling in my house. Uh, just because you never know. And that was like one of the things that like Robert Kiyosaki always mentioned too, is like, all right, say you work at McDonald's and you're making $100 a week at McDonald's. What happens if you get fired? Well, you're not making that $100 anymore. All right, so now how can you bring in more streams of income? All right, say you work at McDonald's, but you have one rent house or you have a beef business. All right, you get fired from McDonald's, but thankfully you have the rent house and the beef business that are still continuing to pay you, even though your main job, you don't work there anymore. So that's a big thing for me, is trying to tell the younger guys now that rodeo is not going to last forever. As bad as that sucks to hear, I think COVID was probably the best thing for a lot of rodeo people, because it kind of opened our eyes. It's like, oh dang, if we're not rodeoing, we're not making any money. So, what can you do on the outside of rodeo to continue to make money?
Absolutely.
That's that's my biggest piece of advice I think I could give somebody.
Well, make that two clips that I will be isolating and sending to my younger brother. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
this has been such a great conversation learning about your careers and your entrepreneurial pursuits. Is there anything else you'd like people to know?
Uh, yeah. I mean, invest now, be smart. It's not always pretty, but it's going to be worth it. Never give up. Uh, have multiple streams of income.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Chuck, for joining us today and making the time. This was a fun conversation, and that'll do it for today's episode. As a reminder, all previous episodes are available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and you can now find us on Instagram at Breaking the Barrier Pod. We'll catch you next time.
See ya. Thank you.